The real reason women get addicted to certain men, Carl Jung explained. There are certain men women don't just desire, but feel psychologically pulled toward. Men they think about late at night. Men they struggle to forget even when the relationship ends. Men who leave an imprint that feels deeper than attraction, deeper than chemistry. This isn't about looks, money, or smooth words. Carl Jung believed this kind of attachment comes from something far older and deeper than conscious choice. It comes from the unconscious, from archetypes, projections, and unresolved inner patterns that quietly shape desire. In this video, we are going to uncover the real psychological reason women become emotionally addicted to certain men, not from modern dating advice, but from Jungian psychology that exposes what the mind hides from itself. According to Carl Jung, most attraction does not begin in the conscious mind. It begins in the unconscious, the place where instincts, memories, and archetypes live. A woman does not fall for a man only because of who he is, but because of what he represents inside her psyche. When she meets a man who activates a powerful inner image, logic shuts down and emotion takes control. This is why some men are unforgettable while others are easily replaced. The bond is not created by effort. It is triggered by recognition at a psychological level she cannot explain. Begins with Jung's concept of the animus. The animus is the unconscious masculine image within a woman's psyche. It is formed from her early experiences with men, especially her father, authority figures, and emotionally significant males. Over time, this image becomes a blueprint for attraction. When a man closely resembles this inner image, emotionally or symbolically, her psyche reacts as if something missing has finally appeared. She doesn't just like him. She feels drawn, compelled, almost magnetized. This is not a choice. It is projection. Projection is one of Jung's most important ideas. When a woman meets a man who fits her animus pattern, she unconsciously projects her inner masculine ideal onto him. She sees him not as he truly is, but as the embodiment of strength, depth, mystery, or protection she feels lacking inside herself. This is why she may describe him as different, special, or unlike anyone else. In reality, much of what she sees comes from within her own psyche. The man becomes a psychological mirror, reflecting qualities she has not yet integrated into herself. This is where emotional addiction begins. Because the qualities she desires live inside him symbolically, she feels incomplete without his presence. His attention gives her a sense of wholeness. His absence creates anxiety, longing, and emotional discomfort. The attachment is not only to the man, but to the feelings of identity and meaning he awakens. Jung believed this is why some relationships feel intoxicating at first and devastating when they end. The psyche confuses the man with the missing part of the self. Goes deeper into why certain men trigger stronger addiction than others. Jung explained that the unconscious is attracted to what is unresolved. Men who carry emotional depth, controlled intensity, and inner tension often activate deeper layers of the psyche. Especially men who are calm, self-contained, and not emotionally reactive. These men appear psychologically grounded, which makes them powerful symbols. They don't chase approval. They don't explain themselves excessively. This creates space for projection to grow. Silence and restraint are especially potent. When a man does not reveal everything, the unconscious fills in the gaps. A woman begins imagining his depth, his strength, his potential. The less he seeks validation, the more the psyche assigns value to him. Jung noted that mystery strengthens projection. The unknown allows the animus image to expand. This is why emotionally disciplined men often become more addictive than overly expressive ones. Their inner stillness feels like authority to the unconscious mind. Another factor is emotional polarity. Women are drawn to men who embody qualities they have suppressed or not fully developed. Confidence, decisiveness, emotional containment, purpose. When a man naturally lives these traits, he represents psychological balance. Being near him feels stabilizing, even healing. This creates a bond that feels necessary, not optional. The psyche clings to what restores equilibrium. This is also why emotional inconsistency can intensify addiction. When a man is warm but not needy, present but not dependent, the nervous system stays alert. The mind seeks resolution. The attachment deepens. Jung warned that when projection goes unrecognized, it turns into obsession. The woman believes she loves the man, but she is actually in love with the inner image activated by him. At this stage, reason no longer controls behavior. Even red flags may be ignored. Even pain may be rationalized, because losing the man feels like losing a part of the self. The addiction is psychological, not romantic. And until the projection is withdrawn, the bond remains powerful. This is only the beginning. In the next parts, we will uncover how childhood patterns, emotional wounds, and masculine presence shape these attachments, and why some men remain unforgettable long after they leave. As we move deeper, Carl Jung reveals that emotional addiction does not form only through attraction, but through wounds. Part 3 begins where most people never look: childhood emotional patterns. Jung believed that unresolved emotional experiences from early life remain active in the unconscious and silently influence adult relationships. A woman may consciously believe she is choosing a man freely, but unconsciously she is often replaying an old emotional story, hoping for a different ending. If emotional validation, safety, or consistency was missing in childhood, the psyche searches for it later in symbolic form. Certain men activate these unresolved needs not because they promise comfort, but because they resemble familiar emotional dynamics. A man who is emotionally reserved may unconsciously resemble an unavailable father. A man who is strong but distant may echo early authority figures. This familiarity creates emotional intensity. The psyche confuses familiarity with destiny. Addiction forms because the unconscious believes that staying attached might finally heal the original wound. Jung warned that the unconscious does not seek happiness. It seeks completion. This is why women may feel deeply attached to men who are not good for them emotionally. The attachment is not logical. It is compensatory. The psyche believes that enduring emotional tension will eventually lead to resolution. The man becomes a symbolic gateway to inner wholeness, even if the relationship causes pain. This explains why advice from friends often fails. On the surface, the man may seem wrong, but at a deeper level, he feels necessary. The bond is not about love in the modern sense. It is about psychological repair. Until the original wound is brought into consciousness, the attachment continues to feel irresistible. Explores why masculine presence intensifies addiction more than words or behavior. Jung believed that energy speaks louder to the unconscious than communication. A man's emotional posture, how he carries silence, pressure, and responsibility, communicates far more than compliments or promises. When a man is internally stable, emotionally contained, and purpose-driven, he radiates psychological gravity. This gravity pulls the unconscious toward him. Women become addicted not to men who seek approval, but to men who are anchored within themselves. A man who does not need constant reassurance signals psychological completeness. This triggers a deep response in the female psyche because it contrasts with internal uncertainty. His grounded presence feels like structure. His calm feels like safety. His independence feels like authority. The unconscious associates these qualities with survival and stability. Jung emphasized that attraction intensifies when opposites meet. Emotional chaos is drawn to emotional order. Self-doubt is drawn to certainty. Inner fragmentation is drawn to inner cohesion. When a woman encounters a man who embodies what she lacks, the psyche locks onto him. His presence feels regulating. His absence feels destabilizing. This is why emotional addiction often grows stronger when the man pulls back rather than chases. Distance amplifies value at the unconscious level. When access is limited, the psyche assigns importance. When validation is not freely given, it feels earned. Jung explained that scarcity increases projection. The less available the man is emotionally, the more symbolic weight he carries. This is not manipulation. It is unconscious response. The mind fills silence with meaning, reveals the shadow, the darkest and most misunderstood element of Jungian psychology. The shadow contains traits a person has rejected, suppressed, or denied within themselves. Desire often hides here. Women can become addicted to men who embody shadow qualities they have been taught to repress, such as assertiveness, dominance, emotional control, or unapologetic ambition. These traits feel dangerous and intoxicating at the same time. When a man lives comfortably with his shadow without guilt or explanation, he becomes psychologically powerful. He represents freedom from inner conflict. His confidence does not ask permission. His boundaries are firm. His presence is unapologetic. This awakens intense attraction because he expresses what the unconscious wants, but the conscious mind restrains. Jung believed that true intensity emerges when light meets shadow. A woman may consciously value kindness and emotional openness, yet feel deeply drawn to a man who is disciplined, restrained, and internally dominant. This creates inner tension. The psyche becomes fixated because it senses growth through contrast. Being near him feels like transformation. Losing him feels like regression. This is where addiction becomes strongest. The man is no longer just a person. He becomes a symbol of strength, healing, and self-realization. The psyche clings because letting go feels like losing access to a more powerful version of oneself. Until these projections are recognized and integrated, the emotional bond remains gripping, irrational, and hard to break. And still, this is not the end. The final parts will reveal how awareness dissolves addiction, why some men remain unforgettable forever, and how psychological power shifts when projection ends. As we enter part 6, Carl Jung brings us to the turning point of emotional addiction awareness. Jung believed that addiction to another person begins to dissolve the moment projection is recognized. As long as a woman believes the man is the source of her feelings, she remains psychologically bound. But when she begins to see that much of what she desires lives within her own unconscious, the spell weakens. This is not an instant process. It is often uncomfortable, even painful, because it requires confronting inner emptiness rather than escaping it through attachment. Jung described this process as withdrawing projection. When a woman realizes that the strength, stability, mystery, or purpose she sees in a man are qualities her psyche longs to develop within herself, the emotional grip slowly loosens. The man loses his mythical power. He becomes human again. This does not mean attraction disappears, but addiction fades. The relationship either transforms into something healthier or naturally ends. However, most people resist this stage. Why? Because addiction provides meaning. Emotional intensity, even when painful, feels alive. Jung warned that many would rather suffer an obsession than face the silence that comes with self-integration. Letting go of emotional addiction feels like losing direction. The psyche clings because the attachment gives identity. I am the woman he chose. I am the one he changed. Without this story, the ego feels exposed. This is why certain men remain unforgettable. Not because they were perfect, but because they arrived at a moment when the psyche was open, wounded, or searching. They activated a process of individuation, Jung's term for becoming whole. Even if the relationship ended, the psychological impact remained. The man became a marker of transformation. The unconscious associates him with growth, awakening, and intensity. Memory keeps him alive because the psyche remembers what was stirred. Brings the final and most important insight. Jung believed that the men who create emotional addiction are not trying to control or seduce. Their power often comes from alignment, not intention. These men are rooted in their own inner world. They are not fragmented. They are not chasing identity through approval. Because of this, they unconsciously invite projection. They act as psychological anchors in a world of emotional noise. The paradox is this: the moment a woman no longer needs the man psychologically is often the moment she can truly see him clearly. And it is also the moment when genuine connection becomes possible. Addiction fades, but respect grows. Desire becomes calmer, deeper, and more conscious. Jung believed that real intimacy begins only after illusion ends. For men, the lesson is not to seek addiction, but to cultivate inner solidity. Emotional discipline, purpose, self-knowledge, and integration of the shadow create a presence that speaks without words. Not because it manipulates, but because it is rare. The unconscious recognizes what is whole. For women, The lesson is equally profound. Emotional addiction is not weakness. It is a message, a signal pointing toward inner work waiting to be done. The men who trigger obsession are not meant to be possessed. They are meant to reveal what is missing within. In the end, Carl Jung did not see attraction as chance or romance alone. He saw it as psychology in motion. When a woman becomes addicted to a certain man, it is not because he completes her, but because he awakens her. And once the awakening is complete, the addiction no longer controls her. What remains is understanding, growth, and the quiet power of self-awareness. That is the real reason certain men are unforgettable. Not because they were held onto, but because they were mirrors.